Hello everyone, welcome to BioLessons. Today's class is about understanding what is biological classification. So we are going to see the journey of classification starting from Aristotle's to Whittaker's five kingdom classification. Okay, so let's see what's inside. We will start by understanding what is biological classification. It is the process in which we arrange the organisms. How? On the basis of the differences between them and similarities between them. Okay. Why do we need it? Look, there are millions of organisms. So we have a huge biodiversity. And if we need to study the organisms, it is very difficult to study about them individually. So grouping of them is very essential, which helps in easy identification. We can give them scientific name, and this process is called as classification. So classification makes the biological study very systematic and also helps in understanding the evolutionary relationship. Is that clear? If you look at the timeline of classification, initially when the scientists started, they just picked up some easily observable characters. So that type of classification system is called as artificial classification system. Okay. Then came natural system, wherein scientists considered many characters to reveal natural relationships between the organisms. And finally came the phylogenetic system, which is based on the evolutionary relationship. Okay, so starting from Aristotle, we have Linnaeus two kingdom classification. Then came the natural classification, in which we have the three kingdom classification, four kingdom classification. After that, we have the phylogenetic classification, which was given by Whittaker in the year 1969. So the first scientific classification, it was given by Aristotle. Very important point. What did he do? He picked up very few observable characters and classified plants based on growth habit, such as herbs, shrubs, and trees. And he classified animals into two groups, those which had red blood cell and those which did not. Okay, so those were very superficial level of classification, and we cannot accommodate all the organisms in them. Also, Aristotle classified animals based on the habitat, such as terrestrial, aquatic, aerial. So what was the limitation of this system? This classification was based on only a few observable characters and did not reflect natural or evolutionary relationship. Okay. After Aristotle came the two kingdom classification, which was given by Carolus Linnaeus in the year 1758. Both scientists' name and the year is important. And Linnaeus, he divided all the living organisms into two kingdom, kingdom Plantae or plants and kingdom Animalia or animals. And the basis of classification included the mode of nutrition. If the organisms were able to prepare their own food, they were placed under plants. If not, they were placed under animals. Second point was presence or absence of the cell wall. All the organisms which possessed a cell wall were placed under plants. If not, placed under animals. Third point, all the organisms which were able to move, they were placed under what? Animals. And which were non-motile were placed under plants. Fourth, he considered the general morphology or the overall body form. So what happened? Kingdom Plantae, it included algae, bryophytes, pteridophyte, angiosperm, gymnosperm, because they were autotrophic or able to prepare their own food. They had a cell wall in them and were non-motile. But along with these also were placed bacteria, blue-green algae and fungi. Why bacteria, blue-green algae and fungi were placed? All of these had a common cell wall present in them. Okay. Then in kingdom Animalia, it had all the animals, but along with that, the unicellular protozoans were also placed because they were motile, lacked a cell wall. So that was the reason to place them in the kingdom Animalia. Okay. So if you see here, the two kingdom classification obviously had a lot of limitation. Number one point is it did not clearly distinguish between the prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So if you see the plant kingdom, the bacteria were placed along with the plants. Now bacteria is prokaryotic in nature, plant is eukaryotic in nature. So they have a fundamental difference with respect to the cell organization and cannot be put together, right? Second point is no distinction between unicellular and multicellular organism. Again in plants, if you see, bacteria is unicellular, the other plants are multicellular. Again they are different. And animalia, if you see, protozoans were placed along with other animals. Protozoans are unicellular, other animals are multicellular. So clearly they cannot be put together. Third important point is with fungi. Now fungi is very unique. Its cell wall is made of chitin. Okay, it lacks chlorophyll. Like the plants, it cannot perform photosynthesis. It is heterotrophic in nature. It depends upon the organic matter to derive its nutrients. So clearly, there is a lot of fundamental difference between the fungi and the plants. So they cannot be put together. Fourth important point is organisms with mixed characteristics were not classified properly. Example, Euglena, very important. Look, Euglena is a very interesting organism. Now it is unicellular in nature. It can perform photosynthesis only when sunlight is there. But in the absence of sunlight, it depends upon the organic matter to derive its nutrients. So that is an animal-like characteristic. Again, it has a flagella and it can move. Again, motility is a characteristic which is for the animals. So which category you should put Euglena, plants or animals? That is very confusing. Fifth point is about cyanobacteria, which is otherwise called as a blue-green algae. Now, blue-green algae, if you see, they can perform photosynthesis, but they are prokaryotic in nature. But other plants are eukaryotic. Again, they have a fundamental difference with respect to the cell organization, even though they can synthesize their own food. Sixth important point is the evolutionary relationship were not considered between the organisms. So these were the limitations of two kingdom classification which led to the development of subsequent other classification systems. Let us now see how the classification system evolved further. After the two kingdom classification came the three kingdom classification. It was given by Ernst Haeckel in the year 1866, and what did he do? He introduced a new kingdom, Protista. And what did it comprise of? It comprised of all the unicellular organisms. So whatever organisms they had a single cell in them, they were placed under the kingdom Protista, and others whatever were multicellular in nature, they were grouped into kingdom Plantae or kingdom Animalia. Clear? Now, it was a improvement for sure, but it had a limitation. Why? The prokaryotes and eukaryotes were still grouped together. How? Look, the kingdom Protista, it had all the unicellular organisms. But if you look at the unicellular organisms, they can be prokaryotic in nature such as bacteria or eukaryotic in nature such as amoeba. So they cannot be fundamentally placed together in a single group because they have different cell organization. Also, fungi was still not given a separate position. So, how it was improved later? Kingdom Monera was created to separate the prokaryotic organisms from the single-celled eukaryotic organisms. Okay. So, hence came the four kingdom classification. It was given by H.F. Copeland in the year 1956. He introduced the kingdom Monera, which comprised of all the prokaryotes. Okay. But this four kingdom classification still had a limitation because fungi were still grouped along with the plants, which were fundamentally different with respect to the nutrition type and the cell wall characteristic. How it was improved later? It was given a separate independent kingdom under Whittaker's five kingdom classification. So finally came the five kingdom classification by R.H. Whittaker in the year 1969. They used many characteristics along with the evolutionary relationship among the organisms and divided the organisms into five major kingdoms: kingdom Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. Okay. Now further it was seen that in the kingdom Monera, there are two fundamentally different groups of bacteria that are present, Archaea and Eubacteria. So later there was a limitation which was found. So a three-domain system which was given by Woos based on the molecular characteristic which classified the bacteria into Archaea and Eubacteria. But only one line in NCERT is given, so you do not need to go further into the details. Just five kingdom classification, until that you need to understand very nicely. Okay, just remember that three domain system was a development over the five kingdom classification. I told Whittaker used multiple criteria for its biological classification. Number one criteria he used was cell structure. He checked whether the organism is prokaryotic in nature or it is eukaryotic in nature. The eukaryotic organisms mean they have a true membrane-bound nucleus as well as membrane-bound organelles, while the prokaryotes lack them. Okay. Second point was body organization or thallus organization. What does it mean? It means whether the organism is single-celled or unicellular, or it is multiple cells are present in it. It is multicellular in nature. That was checked. Okay. Third point was mode of nutrition, whether the organism can prepare its own food or autotrophic in nature, or it cannot, it is heterotrophic in nature. Fourth point he considered was the mode of reproduction, that is whether the organism reproduces by sexual method or asexual method. Fifth and most important is he checked the evolutionary relationship among the organism or the phylogenetic relationship. So Whittaker's five kingdom classification is very important because he took into account the complexity of the organisms and arranged them on the basis of their body complexity or evolutionary relationships. Okay. So all the organisms, if they were prokaryotic in nature, they were placed under the kingdom Monera, and all the eukaryotic organisms were further checked for their body organization. The unicellular organisms were placed in kingdom Protista. Multicellular organisms were further checked for the mode of nutrition, cell wall and other characters. Okay. So the fungi was allotted a separate kingdom because it is saprophytic in nature. It depends upon the organic matter for its nutrients and has chitin in its cell wall. Okay. The kingdom Plantae, it is autotrophic in nature and has cellulose in its nature. And the last kingdom, that is kingdom Animalia, the organisms are heterotrophic and cell wall is absent in them. So you see, all the organisms were arranged as per their complexity and evolutionary organisms were checked. So Monera were the simplest organisms, and if you see, the multicellular organisms were having the complex body organization. Clear? So Whittaker's five kingdom classification, which was given in 1969, classified all the living organisms into Monera, Protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. These are the five kingdoms. Okay. Let us now understand the table which is given in your textbook and describes the characteristics of the five kingdoms. The first kingdom is Monera, which comprises of all the prokaryotic organisms. Okay, that means the nuclear membrane is absent in them. Body organization, if you see, it is cellular. That means all the organisms are primarily unicellular in nature. Okay, some organisms can join together to form long filaments like nostoc and anabina. Mode of nutrition, if you see, both autotrophic and heterotrophic is found. If autotrophic is found, it occurs by chemosynthesis. Okay, cell wall is made up of non-cellulosic matter, that is polysaccharide and amino acid. Okay, next is protista, which is comprised of all the eukaryotic organisms having a single cell in them. Okay, so body organization is cellular in nature. Okay, the cell wall, if you see, it is present in some. Nuclear membrane is present because they are eukaryotes. Mode of nutrition, if you see, they can be both autotrophic and heterotrophic. If autotrophic is found, the organisms are photosynthetic in nature. Okay, the third kingdom is fungi. Again, the organisms are eukaryotic, and the body organization, if you see, they are multicellular in nature. The cell wall contains chitin. Nuclear membrane is present because it is an eukaryote. And mode of nutrition, if you see, it is heterotrophic, that is saprophytic in nature. Okay, so what does saprophytic means? It depends upon the dead and decaying matter for deriving its nutrients. So all the saprophytes are placed under the fungi kingdom. That's a special characteristic. Then the fourth one is plantae. It comprises of the eukaryotic organisms which have a tissue or organ level of body organization. Cell wall is present and it is made up of cellulose. Nuclear membrane is obviously present as they are eukaryotes. And mode of nutrition, if you see, they are autotrophic. That is, they derive their food by the process of photosynthesis. Kingdom Animalia. If you see, all the organisms are eukaryotic. Body organization, if you see, it is tissue or organ system level of organization. Cell wall is absent in them. Nuclear membrane is obviously present because they are eukaryotes. Mode of nutrition, if you see, they are heterotrophic in nature and are holozoic. What's the meaning of holozoic? That means they feed on the solid food by ingestion. Okay, I hope this table is clear for you. Now it's time for the PYQ corner. The first question, let's see, which has appeared in NEET 2023. Who proposed the five kingdom classification? Very easy, Whittaker. Okay. Question 2, which has come in NEET 2022. Which of the following is not a criterion used by Whittaker in his five kingdom classification? Look, the criteria you should remember word by word. Okay. The choices are cell structure, mode of nutrition, body organization, color of the organism. So these three are the characteristics while color of organism is not. So that's the answer. Question 3, which has appeared in NEET 2021. The members of the kingdom Monera are characterized by, we know all the prokaryotic organisms, they are placed under Monera. So choice C, prokaryotic cell organization will be the answer. This question has come in NEET 2026. The main criteria used for five kingdom classification proposed by R.H. Whittaker 1969 included cell structure is included, body organization is included, presence of flagellum is not, reproduction is included, phylogenetic relationship is included. So the answer will be A, B, D and E, not C. Okay. So we have come to the end of the session today. I hope you like the session. If you have any doubts, please feel free to comment. I would be happy to answer them. And if you like the session today, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel and share with your friends. Thank you everyone. Have a very good day.